Hi friends, it's Julia. I wanted to come today and share my January wrap-up and the start of my February wrap-up. I'm going to try and do this every month and break it down into sections so that I don't have so many books. For the month of January, I read a total of 30 books I completed. I came into the month carrying over 4 books. Faye the Wild Hunt by Graham Austin King, The Girl from Ithaca from Cherry Gregory, Full Dark, No Stars by Stephen King, and Yuletide Happily Ever Afters. And there's various artists there, or various authors. And so I carried those over from last year. I'll be honest, I started Faye the Wild Hunt in May of last year. I've read a little bit here and there. It's a it's a fairy story, and it's a first in a series, and so there's a lot of world building here. And it's not really kept me totally enthralled with it like a lot of Faye books do. I've kind of been in and out with it. The Girl from Ithaca by Cherry Gregory is one that I started in, also in May of last year. And I've decided I'm going to put this off till a later point. It is a Greek mythology retelling. And so that's going to go on hold. I DNF'd it, because I had only read 39 pages of it, and there's no sense in continuing to carry it over when I'm not really in the mood to continue it. Full Dark, No Stars by Stephen King, I started in October of last year. Stephen King's not my favorite, but I read a couple of the stories. The first story in it, and I think I started on the second story. So I may continue on with that. I may DNF it. I'm going to give it a while longer before I make up my mind. Yuletide Happily Ever Afters. I think I've read 3 or 4 stories in that. And I started that in December. And it's Christmas stories. So I'm not certain that I will pick that back up this year. I may wait until Christmas time. So if that's the case, it'll stay on my list till then. But anyway, I carried over 4 books from the previous year, and I counted the one as a DNF. In January, I started 32, and I completed 30 books. The books were regular hardback or softback books were 6, Kindle books were 10, and Audible books were 19, and a library book there was 1. Ones that I had purchased before 2018, say 2017 and before, there were 6 books. Ones that I have purchased in 2018, there were 20 books. And then the ones that I've purchased in 2019, there were 10 books. 2 of the books that I read for January were rereads. I read a total of 10,967 pages with an average of 354 pages a day. I gave 13 5-star ratings. I gave 11 4-star ratings. I gave 4 3-star ratings, and I gave 2 2-star ratings, and 0 1-star ratings. So anyway, what I read were Where'd You Go, Bernadette by Marie Semple, Bullet, an epic rock star novel by Jade C. Jamison, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, Fierce by Rosalind James, Driven by Kay Bromberg, Fueled by Kay Bromberg, say that fast 3 times, Bromberg, Crashed by Kay Bromberg, Cats of the Masters by Michael Patrick, Castle of Kings by Betty Scheffler, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Oh, and was that Louis Stevens? Sorry, I forgot who the author of that is. It's a classic. I read it. It was a 2-star rating, so yeah. Lick by a stage dive rock star novel by Kylie Scott. That one was a reread. Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Dragon Marked by Jamin Eve. Clipped Wings by Betty Scheffler. Filthy Beautiful Lies by Kendall Ryan. The Lies We Told by Diane Chamberlain. Bane by L.J. Shin. Ruin and Rule by Pepper Winters. Blaze, Satan's Fury Motorcycle Club by Elle Wilder. The Safest Lies, Miranda Megan. Bonds of Justice, and this is Nalini Singh. This is the number 8 in that series. Repeat by Kylie Scott. Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. Play of Passion, which is book number 9 in that series by Nalini Singh. The Knocked Up Plan by Lauren Blakely. Dark Lover by J.R. Ward. Kiss of Snow by Nalini Singh. This is book 10. Tormentor Mind by Anna Zaries. That was a reread. Obsession Mind by Anna Zaries. And then Destiny Mind, Anna Zaries. And Tangle of Need by Nalini Singh. And that was book 11 in that series. So I did pretty good overall for the month of January. Now what I'm going to do for February is I'm going to start just going through the books that I have read so far. I have the same first 3. Faye the Wild Hunt, Full Dark No Stars, Yuletide Happily Ever Afters. Those I've carried over. Ruin and Rule, I did not finish last month. I had nearly finished it. I had like maybe 22 pages left to read, but I finished it on the 1st. And Wizard's First Rule, I had read about a third of it. Well, a little over a third of it in January, and so I'm still working on that. Then I had picked up All the Little Children by Joel Furness. And this is a story about a lady who takes her kids, her and her sister-in-law take their kids out to the forest for a camping trip. You know, and while they're there, catastrophe happens and apocalypse happens, basically, and their world is just dissolved. All the rest of their family and friends are killed, basically, and they have no one. And so what they've done is it's their survival story with their children. And so it really was a good book. I don't usually pick up books like that, but for some reason, this one, it just stuck out. Next is The Mighty Storm, and that was by Samantha Towle. And this is a story about a rock star who was born in England, moved to America. He and a girl were like best friends, and then he moved away and they lost contact over the time. Well, then he's back in England for a concert tour or something. Anyway, they meet up. She's basically a music journalist, and so she is meeting up with him to have a conversation and an interview, and they kind of hook up and they get back together, and the story goes on from there. It was an okay story. I liked it really well. I rated it a 4. All the Little Children, same thing. I rated it a 4. Ruin and Rule, a 4. Sorry. So this one, there was something about it, and I'm still debating on if I want to go back and rate it a 3. I mean, overall the story was really good, but there were some bits and pieces that just did not work for me. And so I won't go into spoilers on what those are, but I'll leave it at that. Then The Shadow of the Bear, that is by Regina Dorman. This is a story, it's kind of like a retelling. Was it Beauty and the Beast? I think is what this was basically a fairy tale retelling of. And it starts off with the story of some young girls that are raised at home, are homeschooled. They live out in the country, then they have to move into New York City. Mom's an ER nurse, and so is super busy, and these girls are teenagers. One's a senior, one's a junior in high school. Anyway, they go to a Catholic school, and the story ensues from there. They meet a guy that people are telling them is one thing, and they see a different side of him. And so the story goes on. It was an okay story. It left a few little bits and pieces like hanging for me. I think it's a young adult book, or not a young adult, maybe a middle grade book. And so it left a lot hanging. It skipped from event to event without really going into a lot of detail. And so I gave it a 3. 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. Oh my goodness. 5-star rating. I read that this month. Everybody talks about The Hating Game and how awesome and wonderful The Hating Game is. And I've seen a few reviews of this book saying that it wasn't as good. To me, The Hating Game doesn't even come close to this. Now, I did rate The Hating Game a 5-star. It was a really good book. But this one, to me, took it to the next level. I was so much more in love with this story and these characters than I was with The Hating Game. And, I can't really tell you the difference other than these people in this story felt real. Real issues, real problems, real people, real lives. That's how I see it. And so I loved this book, and I gave it a 5-star rating. Next one is Collecting the Pieces by L.A. Fiore. This one started off, it's been on multiple lists when I've looked at books, and I've had it for a while. I can't remember exactly when I bought it or received it. I think it was on my Audible romance package. But I had seen lots of information about this book as being like a dark romance, and so it's always been on those lists as a really good one and rated fairly high. And so I started reading it, and it starts telling this high school story, and I'm like, oh, because college stories I'm okay with, because those characters are usually adults and they make somewhat better decisions. They're still pretty impulsive, they're still kind of childish in some aspects, but they're better. But high school, I just don't have the tolerance for it, because, they're in high school. I'm well over 40. I have children and grandchildren. It just didn't. High school stories don't go well with me. So first, when I started reading it, I'm thinking, oh, this is a 2-star, if not a DNF. And then it kind of was given lots of facts and lots of information without going into too much detail about the story. And I thought, wow, if this is, 400 pages of this, I don't know if I'm probably going to put it down. And then I got to about, 20% into it, and wham, it rocked my world. An event happened that sent everything, off the Richter. It just blew up. And so from there, the main character in this story moves from where she lives in New Jersey off to Wyoming. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Wyoming, but Wyoming can be a desolate landscape interspersed with small little communities that they call cities, and they're really not. They're small little communities. And so I started reading this, and I could picture the environment that these people were in, and I could picture how this woman, coming from the environment that she did to this one, and how things were progressing, it just took a whole new twist on it. And I ended up loving this book. There were still a few things, and I think the first part of it jaded me, and I gave it a 4. So I'm not sad that I gave it a 4. It was really a good book, but I think that whole first part and how it went, like event to event to event to event to event without really breaking things down. I think that's what brought it down for me. Next, I read Aced by Kay Bromberg, and it was book 4, I think. Yeah, book 4 in the Driven series. And I had read the first 3 last month, and I read this one, and it's not the end of the series. There's still quite a few more. And I don't know if this is the end of the 2 main characters, if it's the end of their story, or if the other books are these same 2 people, and it just involves the other characters. I don't know. But I haven't decided if I'm going to go on from here. I really like this series. This one was probably my least favorite. I think I rated the others 4s. This one I rated a 3. It really didn't have a great focus for me. Again, it was like event after event after event, and how they sort of tied together, but then kind of not really, and it wasn't my favorite. And so, not that it wasn't a good story, and not that it wasn't well written, it just... It didn't work for me as well as the others did. Then I went on and I read Zero Gravity by Dan Wells. Or Zero G by Dan Wells. And this is a story, is kind of like Home Alone in outer space. This kid and his family are leaving Earth, and they're going to a new solar system, basically. They're going to have to travel for 100+ years. And so in doing so, they have to board this spaceship that this kid's dad designed. And it looks like, you know, a 300-story building laying on its side, like a huge tube. And so the kid's telling the story about how they get into these pods, and they're life-sustaining pods. Somehow something on his malfunctions, and he ends up waking up just a short way, just 20-something days into the journey, and come to find out there's space pirates who have boarded the ship who are going to try and steal the people to take them someplace else to enslave them. So he basically has to save the day, and he does. I hope that doesn't spoil it too much for you. Really a good story. It is a children's book, and so I did give it a 4-star rating because of that. It really handled the story well. You know, when I first started reading it, I got a little anxious on parts, because books like that will make me have some anxiety because of, you know, the kid's been told this is going to happen if he's awake, or that could happen if he's awake. And it's like, oh my gosh, he's awake. He's not supposed to be awake. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Anywho, that's where I was with that. Really, really a good book. Really a cute story. Then I just started, just the other day on the 8th, I started A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And this is in a book format. And books, I don't tend to take the time to sit down and read as often as I do listen. Or like with ebooks, I can take them on the go with me. Books I usually leave at the house, and I only read them when I'm at home. So I haven't made a lot of progress with that. I'm about to the halfway point with that this weekend, because I've read quite a bit. But yeah, the whole thing of sitting down and trying to get a book read, I don't know how people do it without skipping over bits and pieces. And I don't like to skip over bits and pieces. I like to be immersed in the story. Even with audiobooks, I can always go back, you know, rewind it a little bit and listen to it again if need be. But anyway, that's where I'm at so far in the month of February. Thanks for sticking around and checking out my updates for what I've read in the month of January and what I've started on in February. I'll try to update again probably after the 20th or so that you can get an idea of what I've completed and what else I've picked up in that time. I have quite a list of challenges that are coming this month. You can see I have all of these short reading challenges. Today is the last day of the Fairy Telethon. A Curse So Dark and Lonely is on this list. And so it's also on the Enchant-a-thon at the end of the month from the 18th to the 24th. So I'm not upset that I'm not finished reading it yet. I've also read All the Little Children and The Shadow of the Bear for the Fairy Telethon. Then I've got Contemporary-a-thon next week, and I've got a whole list of books for that. And Series Crackdown from the 15th to the 24th, and I have a whole list of books for that. And then the Enchant-a-thon at the end of the month, and a whole list of books for that. And then I'm doing the monthly challenge, the Valentine's Readathon, and you can see I have like maybe 20 books listed out there. If I get to them, okay. If I don't, okay too. Same with these. If I get them read in the time span of the read, or of the event, of the readathon, that's okay. And if I don't get to any of these but keep reading those, I'm okay with that too. This makes up, I choose to follow through with readathons and the challenges as a way to make up my TBR. Sometimes I will add in additional books if I feel like it, that aren't on my list, and that's okay too. It's all about reading what I own, and so I think I'm making good strides in that. Anyway, we'll see what the month brings. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.